Hello everyone and welcome to Scotland. Today is a very good day because it's my first day back hiking since the lockdown started back in March, and it's now mid-August, so I'm really excited just to be out here and out hiking. I'm in an area of the Northwest Highlands that I've not been to before, and I'm planning to go and camp on this ridge behind me for a couple of nights and just see what's up there. I do have one shot in mind, and I'll see if that works out, but most of all I'm just excited to be out here and back hiking and doing what feels kind of normal again, which is great. So I think I've got about 4.5 hours, 5 hours of hiking to do today. I'm going to take it pretty slow because I've put on a bit of weight over lockdown. I'm feeling a bit unfit, but just excited to get started. Whew. And that is camp. And I am tired. Too much sitting at home and not doing anything. But this will do nicely. Got a great view here. Oh, the midges are here. Gonna have to put my fleece on because these midges are no fun. Well, I'm getting pretty midged. This is, oh, bloody things. Right, the tent is up, and whilst I'm tired, I'm pretty excited to be here. The view in front of me is just utterly spectacular, looking straight down a loch towards one of the most remote mountains in the British Isles. So well worth coming here to see this view, and just such a great change from being stuck at home for so long. Right, so here's dinner. We've got stew with pearl barley. I'm standing up to eat it though because the midges keep reappearing, so I can move if I'm on my feet. But this is a pretty good meal. It's just a bit hot at the moment because it's really hot up here. It's maybe, I don't know, it must still be 20 degrees and the sun's still pretty warm. It's not cooled down yet, so I'm not sure hot food is what I need, but it's certainly what I need in terms of filling myself up. And these RYO meals are really good. Really good. Right, so it's time to do some photography, and it's pretty hard talking to camera because the flies, the midges, they are a bit of a nightmare. So excuse me for constantly wiping my face, but they're pretty irritating. So the scene that you see behind me, so I am obviously here to do some photography, and explaining to camera while standing still is pretty difficult as it turns out because of the midges, so apologies for the head net. But I am going to focus on this scene behind me, and the reason I'm going to do that is the conditions that I'm shooting in at the moment are just not that great in terms of lighting and contrast for shooting these kind of grand scenics where you don't have really spectacular scenery. And I actually think that this view down the loch here, even with the haze, absolutely holds its own. So that's why I'm going to focus just on this one shot on this particular occasion. Now, I did just take a shot of the scene you see here, and there's a couple of things that I'd like to talk about. The first is how much sky you're going to include. A lot of people might be tempted to just do the thirds rule and whack the horizon on a third. That ends up with far too much sky, in my opinion. So what you want to do is really reduce the amount of sky in the frame. So that's a sort of obvious first step. But secondly, there's a bit of an issue with the foregrounds here. Now, I could hunt around and I could possibly find a foreground that was quite interesting. But actually, I have had a quick look and there's nothing spectacular. And it's really quite busy and also contrasty. And it's that contrast that's the important part, because actually haze is obviously reducing the contrast. And so to have a contrasty foreground up against a hazy background is going to draw all the attention into the foreground, which is obviously not what we want. So in this case, I'm going to just try and simplify it as much as possible, completely eliminate the foreground if I can, or at least make it as distant as possible. And there's actually a promontory about 50 meters out that way that looks like it's going to give me a steeper view down over the lake, so that I'm not looking down over all these rocks here. And I think that'll be a much better option. So my camera is in that new location, and you can see just how that layer, if you like, beneath the lock is that much improved in terms of contrast and interest compared to the rocky slope we were looking at before. So it's not nearly as distracting. It's going to make it a lot easier to make a nice simple image, and maybe you'll be able to see some of the midges now landing on the lens, which is a new problem to contend with. But it's actually looking pretty good at the moment. I quite like this light beam that's coming through here, and the way this mountain is kind of just risen above the haze. So I am going to take a shot here. I'm going to shoot with my 70-200 and shoot a panorama, and that's because I probably need about a 50mm lens, but my wide angle is only 16-35, so I'm going to have to make a panorama at 70mm with my 70-200. So I'll do that now, and then hopefully the light will continue to improve and I can get an even better image. But I am going to do some post-processing techniques to try and cut down on this haze as well. I think I'm about ready to wrap this shot up because that ray is getting higher now, and a little less dynamic in terms of its lines relative to the lake. And the hills below the lake also don't have any sunlight on them anymore. So I don't think this is actually going to get better, even though sunset itself hasn't happened. And from this point, there really isn't much more that I think would make a strong image. You can see the hills over there. Even telephoto images would look a little bit too simple, I think. So I'm going to give that a miss and return to my tent. And then I think I'm going to get out of the tent again, and I'm quite keen to get into the tent because of the midges, when it's twilight, and potentially try and get a tent shot. Now that I'm back at camp, I am actually going to have another go at shooting here, because I think with this light it actually does work quite well, because the contrast with the lock there has actually improved quite a bit now that it's in shade. So it's more of a shape. You can't see the hillsides or anything, but I think it still works quite effectively. So I'm using this rock in here as an anchor, and I may try some other compositions, but I think I'm pretty set on this one. And I'm shooting an exposure bracket just to make sure that I've got everything in frame at 35mm. So I think this one's going to come out quite nice. Yeah, so I don't know quite what I was thinking with this one. There's obviously aspects of this scene that are lovely. The light is wonderful and the view is absolutely spectacular. But that foreground that I thought was a good idea really isn't a good idea. It feels very unbalanced. Those grasses sticking out the rocks are distracting, and the rocks themselves just aren't that interesting. So I've left this one in here as a bit of a learning experience, but fortunately I did find a much better scene. And here's an alternative to really wrap things up. I love these diagonal lines coming through in the rock here. I think that makes for a really strong foreground. But to make the most of that foreground, I need to shoot in portrait mode. So I think this is probably going to end up as a 4x5, but I'll show you the original frame and then my crop of it. Found the energy to dash up here to get a tent shot in the sunshine. I think this has come out really beautifully. So I'm pretty pleased I have. I'm now going to set up the camera on a sort of time-lapse mode and see if I can just get me stood next to the tent, because I would quite like a shot like that. So I'm going to put this down and dash down the hill quickly. Twilight is setting in now, and it's just a really nice, cool, gentle breeze, so I can finally chill out. The midges have gone, I can get the head net off, and it is just an absolutely beautiful scene down there. I'm really happy with how this evening's shoot has gone. I thought I'd be struggling with that haze, and then actually as the sun came down, the colours improved and it kind of opened a few shot opportunities. So I think I've got a few keepers there, or at least a couple. And it's just so good to be out, having been locked indoors for so long. I'm just so grateful to be here, and I just hope it can continue, because I'm actually going to be up here for a couple of weeks. I don't know how much I'll be able to vlog because I've got workshops, but I'll maybe try doing bits here and there. And I thought I'd finish by just showing you around, because I've walked up to the top of the mountain, so I'll do a little flip the camera around and pan around so you can see some of the amazing mountains here. Not all so easy to shoot, actually. I really do think the view that I photographed was the one to go for, but it's just an absolutely stunning area. It's kind of a little bit scary for me looking at how far I've potentially got to walk back tomorrow, because I've just gone too far today, given that I'm a bit out of shape, but I'll be fine. Yeah, I'm just looking forward now to having a good lie down. If something spectacular happens tomorrow morning, then I'll be up if there's an inversion or something like that. But I think the lighting direction won't be quite so good, and I'm also expecting it to be cloudy. So I may just take a quick video or otherwise end the vlog here. But I hope you've enjoyed it.